Good afternoon. Well, what a great welcome. Thank y'all so much. It just goes to show that the saying is true, that if you want to seem like a rock star, get a rock star to introduce you. So thank you, Chad, for that introduction. And I know that Chad and everyone here in the room have been such champions for all LGBT Americans, all Americans, and for equality in our country. Chad has devoted his life to ensuring that America's promise of a fair start for every child and a fair deal for every adult is more than a goal, but that it actually becomes reality. Now, I want to just start off by assuring you that I'm Julian, not Joaquin. I'm not a disaster like he is. Some of y'all may know my brother because I think he's spoken also at one or two of the HRC events. My brother routinely goes around introducing himself by saying that even though we're twins, the way to tell us apart is that I'm a minute uglier than he is. These days I say that, he and I are both here in DC. The way to tell us apart is that since he's in Congress and I'm in the cabinet, I'm the one with the real job. But please don't tell any of my appropriators that joke, all right? I also want to take a second to recognize and to thank the leadership of the Human Rights Campaign, including Chief Operating Officer and Chief of Staff Anna Ma. Where's Anna? Where'd she go? Thank you for your leadership. As well as a HUD alum, the HRC Senior Legislative Counsel, Robin Merrill. Robin and I had a chance to chat, and I asked her about her time at HUD, which she assured me was good, and that she'll continue to proselytize and bring folks to the support of HUD. But you're doing such great work here. Congratulations on all your success. The fight for full equality for LGBT Americans is one of the defining issues of our time. And it's a fight that HRC has been proudly leading for 35 years now. And this weekend's gathering is a chance for some of the most thoughtful and courageous champions in the movement to learn from each other, to take stock of the progress that has been made in those 35 years and in this grand year of 2015, and also, and maybe most importantly, to plan for the road ahead. So it's indeed an honor to share some time with you today. And what an incredible time for HRC and for America. I think that when historians write about 2015, they will write that this was a defining year when America said that there are no second-class citizens in this country. In just the past few months, we've seen our nation take remarkable steps in the movement for full equality. 2 weeks ago, President Obama made history when he announced he was nominating Eric Fanning to become the first openly gay man to serve as United States Secretary of the Army. In August, the White House welcomed its first openly transgender staff member, Rafi Friedman Gersman. And of course, in June, thanks to years of organizing and of activism and a determined campaign in state legislatures, in the halls of Congress, and ultimately before the Supreme Court, every American now has the freedom to marry the person that they love. Or as I like to say, the United States no longer has gay marriage and straight marriage. We just have marriage in America. It's a testament to all the brave Americans who were willing to speak openly and honestly without knowing how their truth would be received. It's also a testament to the work of organizations like HRC and Marriage Equality USA, who helped spearhead a brilliant legal strategy, a strategy that both expanded freedom and allowed countless Americans to see that the equality movement wasn't trying to change marriage, it was trying to strengthen it. And so much has been accomplished. But as I'm sure Chad mentioned earlier and others have said, we also can't slow down or let up, not even for one moment. Because even with the progress that has been made this year, I don't have to tell you that the road ahead is not going to be easy. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. You are those dedicated individuals, and we saw the wisdom of Dr. King's words even as we celebrated the Supreme Court's marriage equality decision. In the days following the court's ruling, a number of counties continued to deny marriage licenses to gay and lesbian couples. And time and again, we heard a familiar argument that affirming the constitutional rights of LBGT Americans jeopardizes our nation's religious freedoms. That's just not true. As the President has said, we cherish our religious freedom and are profoundly respectful of religious traditions. But we also have to say clearly that our religious freedom doesn't grant us the freedom to deny our fellow Americans their constitutional rights. That was our message in San Antonio when, as mayor, I helped lead the effort to pass the city's first non-discrimination ordinance. San Antonio's non-discrimination law added sexual orientation and gender identity to the list of classes protected from bias. But the fact is that millions of Americans live in places where these laws are not on the books. That means that they can still be denied services, fired from their job, or kicked out of their homes simply because of who they are. That's wrong. That is not who we are as Americans, and that has to end. Fortunately, HRC and your allies are leading a push to pass non-discrimination laws in the dozens of states that don't have them today. That includes the 3 states whose protections don't include transgender Americans. And I want you to know very clearly that you have a friend and a partner in HUD. Since becoming secretary, I've made it a priority to ensure that every American who counts on HUD can do so without the fear that they'll face discrimination. That's why we formed a partnership with the True Colors Fund and other federal agencies to support LGBT youth who have been thrown out of their homes or who have run away because they've been rejected for who they are. It's a growing crisis in America. As many as 40% of homeless youth are LGBT, and they deserve our attention and our action. So we've launched a first-of-its-kind pilot in 2 communities, in Houston and in Cincinnati. It's going to work, and I know there's some folks here who are involved with that pilot. It'll work with families to prevent the conflict that LGBT youth are often subjected to. We also know that transgender Americans who are at risk of homelessness often encounter more obstacles when they seek help. In some cases, they're turned away from shelters. In others, they'll be accepted but placed in a shelter for the wrong gender. And even when they're put in the right shelter, they'll sometimes be segregated and told to use separate facilities. That's an injustice. It's an injustice that any transgender person is mistreated when seeking help. which is why HUD has published new guidance so that providers treat these Americans with the dignity that they deserve. All of this work has been based on the groundbreaking rule that our department issued in 2012 to ensure that every HUD program is open to all Americans, no matter their sexual orientation, their gender identity, or their marital status. And since then, HUD has stepped up our work with local housing partners and public housing authorities to make sure that more elderly LGBT Americans can secure the supportive housing that they need. And we've partnered with the Department of Veterans Affairs to get more of our military heroes off the streets and into a safe home, which I know is a priority outlined in HRC's blueprint for positive change. HUD will continue to expand our service to LGBT Americans, and that means that we'll be counting on the HRC more than ever as we look to finish strong in the administration's final 15 months in office. You see, so much of this progress wouldn't be possible if President Obama hadn't made equality for LGBT Americans a priority. He's championed full equality like no one who has ever sat in the Oval Office before. He repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell, stood with LGBT couples in the fight for marriage equality, expanded protections for the same-sex partners of federal employees, prohibited federal contractors from discriminating against workers based on who they are, and worked to stop the bullying of LGBT youth by speaking directly to young Americans as part of the It Gets Better campaign. In other words, fundamentally, the President has used the bully pulpit and the power of his office to advance equality time and again. He recognizes that protecting the civil rights of every citizen has to be at the forefront of government's work. But our nation also needs the ongoing support and the insight of, in Dr. King's words, passionate, committed individuals who are not afraid to fight on behalf of their fellow Americans in the cause of freedom. The Human Rights Campaign and its allies are among the most passionate, committed, and unafraid Americans that I know. I'm grateful for your partnership, and I look forward to the journey ahead as we continue to march toward a nation where everyone is free to be who they are, to love who they choose, and to live out their dreams free from fear and without apology. That is America. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary, for your leadership and for your continued commitment to these issues and importance to all Americans and to LGBT Americans in particular. Thank you. The Secretary has graciously agreed to take a couple of questions, so raise your hand, and he's happy to take a couple of questions before he has to race off. It's hard to see up here, so you may just have to stand up. Here, it's right here, I think. I saw a hand. Stand up.
There's one back there.
Oh,
yeah.
You're right below the spotlight.
Yeah.
What can we in Houston do to help support the HUD projects?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. The good thing is it's a strong partnership with the True Colors Fund that I spoke about in my remarks. Yeah, I would say to ensure that families who are going through this experience know about that resource, because we want to involve families in a way that prevents the kind of turmoil that often ends up in an LGBT youth being homeless on the streets. And so perhaps we can get you the information to connect with the folks on the ground in Houston or Cincinnati to ensure that we have a robust number of families who are participating in that. Because, you all know better than I that oftentimes this is a thing that a lot of families don't like to talk about. And so you may have some families that are dealing with this, probably a lot of them, but aren't necessarily going to be the first ones to reach out for help. We want to make sure that folks feel comfortable. And so we'd love to connect with you and get you that information. All right.
Question over here.
Hey, San Antonio in the house.
All right, there you go.
I just want to be a little bit more lighthearted, and I know being away from San Antonio often, I just want to make sure that you have great places to eat here, and how your family's assimilating to DC.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, let me say that, of course, there's no place like home, I think Dorothy said, right? So my wife, Erica, and our 6-year-old daughter and my 9-month-old son live up here with me in DC in Woodley Park. And I have been very pleasantly surprised at how well my wife Erica and our daughter Karina have made the transition to DC. It's been a lot better than we thought. And my daughter goes to this Oyster Bilingual School up here, and she's in 1st grade and having a good time. I wish that I could be as optimistic about the food. I cannot. My 2 pet peeves about DC have nothing to do with the politicians, but basically it's impossible to get good barbecue or iced tea. Those of y'all who are from the East Coast, for those of y'all who are from the East Coast, I don't know what it is that the East Coasters are genetically not made to make good iced tea. Yeah. It's like you cross, into the East Coast, but we're having a good time. And I also want to say, to follow up on the issue of Houston, we need to win on Hero in Houston. And I know that Mayor Parker was here yesterday. I know she's energized and charged up to win that, and told some of the folks that I look forward to reaching out to her and finding out if there's a way that I or my brother can be helpful in that regard. All right.
I think we have time for one more question.
Several of us are from Ohio in the program. Many of us are from Ohio and would love to be active in the program in Cincinnati. Can we download something to describe it? And what is the range of age for youth? And if it includes minors, how do you overcome that obstacle?
Yeah, it's a partnership with the True Colors Fund. And we'd be glad to get you information. I'm not sure if it's easily findable on our website, but we'll make sure that we connect you. It includes a range of youth, because the point of it being preventative, we don't want to start just when they're 18 and becoming an adult. So it does include a range of youth, and we'd like as many families as possible to participate. And so the more champions that we can have out there bringing that resource available to folks, the better. All right. Well, hey, y'all. First of all, thank y'all again for your great advocacy. Congratulations on all of the hard-fought, deserved victories that y'all have seen. You have so many folks that admire your work and your advocacy, and that y'all are really the ones making America great, and continue to make it better and better. And a country that lives up to the words in our founding documents that all folks are equal. Thank you.